30 seconds, guys. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the IMAA's Leadership and Training session. This is the third and final installment we have with the Greg Sparrow, and I'm always excited to see what he has to say. Today's one is on the 4 Ps of new business, and he'll go through those. But the one thing that I want everyone to do and encourage you is to ask questions. He's going to stop at the end of each P and open it up to the floor. So ask questions. It's a very, very rare and expensive opportunity to sit down with him and ask questions and have some, no agenda, just some straight answers around the industry and his thoughts on things. He's also going to relate it back to what indies have an advantage over the rest of the market. So that's really exciting as well. But without further ado, I'll hand it over to Sparrow to kick things off. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Seb. So today there are no slides. I'm just going to have a chat about top learnings around the 4 Ps. And the first P is prospecting. The second one is pre-pitch. The third is pitch. And the fourth is post-pitch. So they're just 4 Ps that I've used over the years. And as I said, I think they're all important. And I'm going to cover sort of learnings where I think you have an advantage within each P. And then, as Sam said, I'll take questions after each section. So we'll sort of break it down, chunk it down into 4 bits, and then I've allowed time for questions at the end. And as Sam said, I've got no agenda. I'm not drinking anyone's Kool-Aid here. I'll give you an honest answer. So, go for it. Get value out of this session and ask whatever you want. I literally, as I said, I'm up for anything. So the first P, prospecting, I don't think anyone does this well. I don't think anyone does this well. And I think you guys have an advantage right up front. Because a lot of people talk about prospecting, but it's a bit like that old thing. There's a lot of talk about it, but not many people are doing it. So I think that, as I said, you have a real advantage here if you get your act together and have prospecting isn't just a nice to have. You've got to have a pipeline and you've got to really work at it. So, as I said, we would have quite a intensive analysis work of the market, the top 100 spenders in a particular category. For your case, it might be, you pick a certain billings range. We would then take out conflicts, things that were globally aligned. So we'd sort of go through and filter this list. And then it would have, do we know anybody, connections, worked on in the past, and we'd get down to a prospect list. And we would literally rank them and continually, I would have to report on a monthly basis how my prospecting was going and where I was at. So once again, all the analysis work. And also, we used to work with the media very much. In your case, I'd be asking the reps, what are direct clients? What direct clients do you have that maybe are looking for extra help? What are some small clients that maybe you could, once again, start the relationship in any way, take whatever you can get in to get in the door, might be a project or a small part of it, and then sort of move in. The main thing I did, I was very much thinking around where do I meet these clients? I'm prospecting, I've got this, I'm sending them newsletters, I've joined them on LinkedIn, I've got all of this stuff, but how do I physically get to meet them? So I recommended that we join the AANA, which is the Australian Association of National Advertisers. They've got 145 members. And, once again, you could possibly join that. But I'd look at other options. I don't know whether Leeds in Victoria is there, the Small Business Association. In New South Wales, there's the New South Wales Small Business Association. There's also the Australian Small Business Association. I just look, are there other associations or places where you can, the Retail Association, are there other places where you can get to actually meet these prospects? So they're not just on your list and they're in your pipeline, you actually can physically, reach out and join them. And as I said, industry associations are always, a good place. I'll tell you the story. I used to go to the AANA Christmas event where they had a marketer talk every year, and it was after their board meeting. And look, everyone used to think, once again, a sparrow's there to, drink. I would go there early. I would check all the name tags to see who was in the room, right? I would get there early to look at the name tags, right? And I would go, okay, there's 5 CMOs I need to contact or meet during this event. I would go over to the CEO of one of our agencies and go, the CMO of this client is in the room here today, and would you believe they're on our prospect list? They're going to review in 6 months, and we need to be on the short list. Go over and introduce yourself. Stop talking to your mates. Go over and introduce yourself, and then start a conversation. And then, of course, I would join them on LinkedIn, and once again, I would start this relationship. I'm crazy on LinkedIn. That's my thing. Everyone I've ever met, I hit up on LinkedIn. I'm not shy about it. I just do it. Hence, I've got 27,000 connections on LinkedIn. But as I said, I've got no shame. I just reach out. The clients don't have to. The clients, if I'm in a pitch situation, they mightn't accept my invitation, but a lot of them do. And now, as I said, I've got 27,000, and a lot of them are CMOs and in marketing. So I've built up that network over time. As I said, the pipeline is continued. Like you can't stop. This is just a continual process. Prospecting. I also talked about, marketing's important. Graham Webster mentioned it's important to have a profile. Have the press, get out there, because the consultants, see the press, but also, clients read the trade press. I mean, they do. Now, I think they're selective in what they read. I'm not sure they're reading Mumbrella, but they're definitely reading MI3, and they're definitely reading the Fin Review and some other publications. So you'd be surprised how they are probably better informed than we think. And then I go back to networking again. It sounds so normal to do, but in our industry, networking is a way to really meet the marketing community, and you should never have a blind date. When you've got a pitch and you got that chemistry meeting, no blind dates. You should have met the client, and if you've met them somewhere, and normally, I've mentioned this last session, through the media, I would work my media connections. And if I knew that client was going to be at the football, at Melbourne Fashion Week or whatever, I would be there to start that relationship. So prospecting, as I said, I don't think anyone does it well. The big end of town, they talk about it, but they don't do it well. And I think just start. Don't make it too complex. A lot of people make it too complex, and they just, make it too difficult, then they sort of drop off. So don't make it too difficult. So they're my tips on prospecting. As I said, start small, work up, use the networking, look at industry associations. And, as I said, I had newsletters and other collateral to send out if I needed to. Or also think about, if someone, what would you send somebody to start to tell the story of your agency? What do you have to talk about yourselves? And also, is there an offer there? What sort of offer? I've noticed a lot of performance agencies, offer free health checks. It's like going to your doctor, offer a free health check. But some sort of advice to sort of get their attention and start to engage with them. So look, that's prospecting. That's the first P. Any questions around prospecting? And as I said, I'm happy to ask anything. And could anyone, do you actively do this? I'm asking you, give me a thumbs up if you actively do this. Got a couple of people thumbs up. Probably, I don't know, Sam, how I do a rough poll. Josh has got the not so sure a bit, but I had a few thumbs up there. But look, once again, if you're not doing this, like you should be, it's part of business, it's part of new business, and as I said, just start simply and just get a small program happening and sort of work away. Because to me, persistency is important, and don't overcomplicate it. Anyone else there? Any questions around prospecting? I didn't have any, but I'm just pause for a minute.
Guys, you can just call it out or throw it in the chat feature if you want.
Throw it in the chat feature. If not, just call it out. Yeah, no problem. No? Okay, I'll keep going. But as I said, if some of you could think about some questions at the end, because I've allowed heaps of time for questions. And as I said, you won't get an opportunity where someone will give you the real facts and the real truth. And particularly, as I said, I've seen some of this in particularly the last 20 years. This has been my life. So look, pre-pitch. I think this is tough for you guys, because I think the big end of town have a lot of resources when it comes to pre-pitch. And I'll just take you through a couple of agencies I've worked with. One had a manual of new business. So it was a global manual, and it came out from London, and it literally, tracked the process. It had, various checklists, various processes, and various things to do throughout the new business process. And it was, really a good manual. So some of the agencies have these, and as I said, they're not unique. Some, 2 or 3 of them I've seen. And some of them have got the resources, so they're ready when a pitch is coming, pre-pitch. P number 2, they just they're a machine and they just go into it. And at an agency I worked at 2 years ago, within 48 hours of a brief coming in, we had a pitch plan that was about 5 pages that we had to complete, and within 48 hours we would get together and discuss the pitch plan. And in that, there would be, I would take out a purchase order, have a budget. The pitches would be categorized into a low pitch, medium pitch, and a hi-fi pitch, where we throw everything at it. They had different budget levels, and the machine would commence and people would be allocated. And as I said, within 48 hours, we would have a plan that was in action. And once again, they had the resources to go off and do all this. In fact, the only downside is sometimes they actually had too much information. They sort of got a bit lost, because they just gathered so much. So sometimes they might get lost in all the info, but they definitely had the resources to gather a lot of info. And as part of that pitch plan, we would always have an engagement plan, and the engagement plan would start from that day. How we're going to engage with them. Our goal was to engage with the client every week. Sometimes that might be too much if it was 4 or 6 weeks, but we would literally have how we were going to engage with them, what we were going to do, and that would go right through until the decision was made. So, the engagement plan was a really vital part of the pre-pitch process. And as I said, from what level we could engage, the CEO would engage at the top level, but it would be a well thought out plan with various things about engagement throughout the process. Also, I think it's important to remember in the pre-pitch process, I think you can actually win a pitch before the pitch. If you have your act together, and a well thought out pitch plan, and you rally, the team, and you have the engagement plan, and you keep to your deadline and whatever, I think you can be quite successful, prior to the pitch. The client can see, your passion, your commitment, and how you're really sort of working towards the pitch scenario. So, I think a well thought out pre-pitch plan, as I said, is vital and can be incredibly successful. Pre-pitch. I also wanted to think about once again, with resources, there'd be different teams working on different parts. So, at the very beginning of the process, we were open to, lots of ideas. And then as we move through, we'll get more focused, and you really sort of zero in on the ideas. And For the engagement plan, and there was a good question there. With the engagement plan, there would be any insights into their category. So if there was any research, if we had done any research, well, once again, we could commission research, or we might do some focus groups, might do some box pops, just anything around the category. We would send teasers to the client. So if we were doing research, we would send teasers that, on this date, we're going to unlock insights around this. And, we've talked to consumers here. Or we sent, certain teams up to, visit the factory. I know it sounds corny, but visit the factory. And the factory, would you believe, was in Queensland. Visit the factory in Queensland. Take photos, and we would send the client the photos of some of the team at the factory tour. An old trick. None of this is new, but there'd be showing that what the team was doing. Understanding the market, getting out there, particularly talking to consumers. So anything unlocking around consumer stuff, we would tease that in the engagement plan. Also, any overseas learnings, if there was a study out of somewhere else, we had the business in another market. Once again, sort of drip feed and try to excite them with various things to engage them. Or we'd always send, prior to the pitch, a people booklet that had the team and all the experience. So look, there'd be a host of various things, but normally it would be teasing insights into the category, highlighting the team, and there just may be some other little things we would do just to keep that engagement up. Then I'm just going to jump around to the third P, which is the actual pitch itself. Now, I covered off a lot of this in the last session, but I wanted to particularly cover, as I said, I was in the Bean Tea judging last week, spent a day from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night judging the Bean Tea Awards. And there were 3 CMOs in the room, and I noted all their questions and the things that they were leaning forward about and the things that really, got them going. And that was around 3 things. It was around the work. Everyone had to present 2 case studies, and the client questions were very much around the metrics for success. Did it work? What were the metrics? Could you share those? And if you're presenting work to us, what was the ROI? So very much around effectiveness, obvious, but it was vital. Like, it was the first question every CMO asked. So that was the first question. The second one, which I was a bit surprised at, was about the diversity, and a female CMO was asking about the female leadership of the creative department or the leadership of the agency. And after the agency presented, she was very passionate about rewarding agencies that were, really courageous and had, diversity goals, and were really pushing those. So there was definitely the second thing I noticed was around diversity and real proof that the agencies were delivering on diversity and inclusion, and not just lip service or tokenism. It was like, we want to see real proof. And then the third thing I noticed, there were multiple questions around, thank you for telling your agency story today. What's your agency going to do tomorrow? What's your agency thoughts for the future? So I mentioned that in the session, I think last time, where clients don't want to just know about today, they want to know about tomorrow or what's next. And as I said, that was the third most important question I noticed the clients wanted to know about. Also, in the pitch, I find that everyone wants to know about the A team, and you guys are very much talking about the A team and people and culture. But they want proof around this, guys. And I've talked about this before. You can't just say you've got a good culture, good people and culture. Prove it to me. What are the stats around your churn and your retention? Are there any other satisfaction scores? I think, is it Media Eye do, happiness survey? Like, what are the stats? Anything else you can do? Because you got to prove to me that this is legit. And as I said, everyone fudges this. So, you really got to get to the stats, and once again, be open and honest around keeping, retaining, nurturing and training the A team and the best talent. Then there's questions around transparency and trust, which I definitely think you guys have an advantage around transparency and trust. You've just got to prove it. So just talk about it, prove it to me. And also better if you can get someone else to talk about it. Speed and agility, I talked about that. But once again, prove it to me. Don't just talk about it. And then, you know, how do you make it memorable? Because the other day in the judging, you know, we'd seen, I think, 12 agencies. And at the end of the day, at 5:30, 6 o'clock, we were talking about what agencies stood out. And they tended to have memorable moments. They had memorable work. They had work that stood out. They had great sizzle reels. Or there was just memorable parts that stood out that the clients discussed at the end of the day. So once again, you really got to think about, you know, what's compelling, what's memorable, and what will they remember, not just now and in the future. So that was the third P. And as I said, I think in pitching, I definitely think you guys have got an advantage. You've got great talent. You know, you've got, you know, the A team. You're very much around effectiveness and results. You've got no hidden agendas. And, you know, clients are looking for proof points. So I think if you can nail those, you definitely have an advantage because these days, as I said, a lot of the top end of town is talking about this stuff, but do they have proof? And is there substantial evidence to back that up? Because I think they've lost, you know, some trust issues. I'm just going to stop there. Can I ask anyone got any questions? I'm just going to check the chat room there. Won't be a sec.
Sparrow, I've got a question.
Go, bud.
If you're, and I'm kind of at this stage with a client that I've prospected, get on well with, Australian-based client. Originally, the company's based overseas, and they're looking at the old favourite global realignment.
Yes.
So I don't know how I fight that. I've got the client on my side, but he's got to fight head office.
Yeah. Look, that's tough. I would just go now, depending on the alignment. If it happened to be, and I'm making this up, an agency that was maybe weak in this market, they might be really good. Like I've often played up, they might be great in New York, but in Australia they suck. They haven't invested in talent. They haven't done any training. So in fact, Australia is their weak link. You know, good in New York, good in London, here shit. And I would, you know, back that up with some stats. Now, if it was OMD or initiative, you know, might be a tougher sell.
Yeah.
But I would definitely look for some weaknesses. And I would also say that their network, you know, they say they're global, but a lot of these global agencies, you know, claim that, but really don't act as they say. So they say, you know, when's the last time you saw, you know, a learning from overseas or something from APAC? Or I'd really ask for evidence around that, because I think a lot of the agencies, once again, claim it, but when's the last time they shared the good stuff with Australia? You know, they tend to be very, you know, UK or Europe based. So I would play that up. And also then I'd play up your stability, your knowledge. No one else knows the client like you do. You know, and all those things that you guys talk about in your marketing now. You know, you're transparent, you've got the A team. And then, you know, if I had to, I'd find someone who was an advocate for you, easy to say, and maybe had a bad experience with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I know this client that was there with them. They were unhappy. They had churn of 65%, and they put the client up for review. And seriously, I used to be able to find clients like that. So I'd say, here's the phone number. You ring this client because they had an experience which doesn't match the bullshit you're hearing from head office.
Good. Thank you, mate.
No worries, buddy. I'm just looking at some of the questions. Can I share the global manual? Leedsy, that's going to cost a lot of money. For that global manual to fall off a truck, Sam just needs to pay me a lot more. But seriously, there are quite a few manuals, but you know, there are some brilliant ones, but yeah, they don't fall off the truck very often, but let's talk. Subject matter experts. Look, it depends on the subject matter expert. Like once again, I'll be honest here. I was in a pitch 3 weeks ago, and the subject matter expert from, I was going to say Digitas or the Digit was outstanding. You know, like he was just incredible. And so, in that case, I had to say the talent, in the digital area at Digitas was outstanding. Whereas sometimes, other areas I've seen them and they're all talk, no action, and it's all fluff. So look, it does depend on the subject matter expert, and clients are buying into Salesforce and some of the other data stories. But they want people to advise them on that. Is Salesforce the right solution? And that's where friends from Accenture and the others, that's where they sort of, I think, excel quite well, that they can often advise clients on Salesforce and other data stories that I wouldn't be comfortable advising clients. But it's a mixed bag. As everyone, once again, I've seen some great subject matter experts, but don't always assume just because they're in a big agency they're good. I think you have great talent, you have the A team, you've got consistency, value your product, because it's not all rosy in the big shops. And anyone who's really good, tends to get looked after or probably move overseas eventually. Diversity. Look, the CMO, someone asked about diversity, and look, the CMO was very much, and once again, it was a female CMO, so she was very passionate around female leadership. There was some questions around diversity in other areas, and there was a question around Indigenous community, and just other areas of diversity. But the thing is, the clients didn't want fluffy answers. Like, it wasn't just, yes, we're looking to do that. It's like, what have you done? There are certain agencies, that have, Indigenous interns. I'm working on a program now with Indigenous scholarships. And these agencies, are really walking the talk in these areas. And have, real, reconciliation plans, real hard evidence around this. I know Sam's working on this and talking to industry experts. So you can't just talk about it. You got to have proof and evidence. Yeah. And everyone's doing it. So you got to have it.
Further to that, Sparrow, as well, guys, we're well and truly down the path for an umbrella program for all agencies when it comes to reconciliation. So we're working with Reconciliation Australia, and what can we do that so everyone can kind of tap into that. And then the second part is diversity. So you guys would have seen, a lot of you may have put your hand up for the Diversity Council, the Underlaid Developing. That's just about educating and giving tangible things that we can do as an industry body to that you guys can implement within your own businesses that will allow diversity, inclusion, and all those things to be covered off and pushed to the forefront.
And as I said, I used to think this was expected, but I was surprised by the CMOs the other day how important it was. Like I was taken back a little bit by those three CMOs. This was an issue. Like next to effectiveness, this was the reason. They had a question around this, and as I said, they wanted real action. And I think some of them as organisations are going through the same thing. And if you're pitching for government or anything in that area, you have to have this. You've got to prove. You've got to have real proof. No other questions around that, so I might just sort of jump on after the pitch. So the last P, and I'm going okay time-wise, is post-pitch, and I definitely think you can do this better. I definitely think post-pitch, everyone, once again, thinks they're good at this, but they're shit, and they don't really do it well. I'll tell you a story about in the US. Once again, I think I mentioned I was there for 7 years working on new business, and we had the craft pitch. It was a big pitch. We'd worked all weekend. We rehearsed on Monday. The pitch was on the Tuesday morning, and we had great rehearsals. We had good work. Once again, it was a really good pitch, and we had an ex-client was the marketing manager there on some of the craft divisions, and after the presentation, he fed back to us that we had the best presentation. And in fact, I think he said it was a 9 out of 10. We blew them away with the quality of our presentation. So as I said, we'd worked all weekend, crazy hours, and we pretty much were just, we had this great feedback from an inside source that we'd worked with and said we were the clear leaders. And then we literally all went home and slept and took some days off and chilled. And then most of the people went back to their regular day-to-day work. And then 2 weeks later, they made the big announcement and we were unsuccessful. And I was in shock. I was like, okay, we were the best presentation. We were 9 out of 10. We were clearly leading. However, what we did after the presentation, we did nothing. We stopped. And as I said, we were tired and burnt out and worked all weekend, and we literally stopped. And because we had that feedback, we got overconfident and we did nothing. And as I said, my major learning from that, I always remember it, the craft pitch in New York, was that our competitor knew that they were unsuccessful. They happened to be the incumbent. They had other opportunities to have other meetings. They went back, would you believe, and represented some stuff. They reworked the C-suite. They really worked hard on fine-tuning the contract and some of the arrangements. And as I said, turned it around and it ended up winning when we had the best presentation. So when I talk about post-pitch, the last P, it's incredibly important because it's never over till it's over. And I've had some very hard lessons. I've mentioned that one. I've had several in Australia with Henry Tasia where we thought we were successful and we lost to Henry. And Henry actually won post-pitch. He outmaneuvered us in the post-pitch stage. And as I said, kept the business, won the business, or took it out from under us. So post-pitch, have the discipline and be persistent. Keep that engagement plan going. And the engagement plan, as I said, is done right up front. So, you're not thinking about that after the pitch and you're exhausted and you're tired. You're thinking about that prior. You'd have stuff done, and I'll come back to that. Think about how else do we remind them of all the great things in the pitch? And I want to just share some, what were the elements? There might be a team photograph. We might video the client in a pitch. We might take some photos in a pitch. We might have the team write a personal note to the marketing team. What else could we do that, brought to light and, played up those benefits that we presented in the pitch so that they're memorable? They'll sit with the decision makers throughout the post-pitch process. And as I said, we've sent postcards. I've done props. I've done videos. I've done a lot of cards. Take lots of pictures during a pitch. Just anything that to keep you top of mind. It's like top of mind awareness. Don't have memory decay after the presentation. How do you keep that up with the major decision makers? Just so vital. And as I said, I think if you do this well, you can be successful, and you do have an advantage. Because actually, a really good question here. I don't think post-pitch is all about the money. Now, in some cases it is. In some cases, it may be negotiating around the contract and the deal. But if there's two great agencies, they're going to be asking about, is that team leader the person I want? That team leader we met was outstanding. Are they going to be on our business 100%? Do we have access to that person who we met from your agency, who we thought we were very impressed with? We really thought that idea you put up was outstanding. Is it doable? We often, if there was clarity around the work, just go, we'd like to come back, and we explored that opportunity and that sponsorship or that area, we're holding it for you, or it is still available, or whatever. So I don't think all conversations around money, money obviously is an important conversation. I'm not downplaying that. But, there are other factors. And I very much think about the team you can play up, the quality of the A team, which you guys keep talking about. and also, the work. What would remind them of the work? What would be a key thing? They think, oh my God, that agency, they came up with that idea. That's incredible. So post-pitch, that's all on the last P. And as I said, not many people do that well. So I suggest if you do that well, you'll be very good. I'm just looking at the time. I've got another sort of 5 minutes. I just wanted to cover off again from the B&T judging the other day. There were lots of people talking about people and culture. And the clients, once again, interrogated the people and culture stories. There were questions around what are you doing around mental health? What are you doing around burnout and churn? What are you doing? You talk about you're all about purpose, but, are 5% of your profits going to, charities? Are 5% of your profits going to staff? I mean, what were the tangible actions and proof points? So once again, very specific things. Don't just talk about it. Don't just talk about the fluffy stuff. There were some agencies talk about people and culture, and they talked about, we give our team doona days and we let them go on picnics and we have barbecues. The clients went, yeah, that's fine. Like they get, back in the office, they used to get a free breakfast. That's not what they're interested in. It's, how you're retaining your top talent, what's your training and development plans, what are your stats, what are your tangible actions around mental health, and don't, it's not just lip service. I really want to know about this stuff. It's important to me. So please give me metrics around it. And I thought, some of them were actually tougher than I imagined. But, people and culture is so important, particularly with the talent shortage and, the lack of international talent. So you got to have, stats and proof points around all of that. Now, I've got 5 more minutes. Any more questions? I'm just opening up to the floor. If anyone wants to turn their camera back on. I'm just checking the chat room because I've got another 5 minutes. But I'd just like to say, so Sam, when you talk with your ads, if I can go, you've got your finger on the pulse is one, right? The other one is around the A team at the table. So we've got the best talent. Then we want results just as much as you do, all around effectiveness, which is once again ROI and effectiveness. And the only agenda, is the meaty one. So we have no hidden agendas. My challenge to you is I totally buy into all of those. Like the 4 of those are what clients want. But what do you have around proof and tangible stats to say you're doing that? It's not just an ad. It's a good ad. But how do you show to me that you keep the A team? They're not leaving. You're training. You're nurturing. Like, what are your metrics around those? So they're not just ads.
Look, that's a great question. I mean, Phil's on the line as well. It's around this is around what our members bring to the table.
Yes.
And maybe I should open it up to all the guys because I'm just the mouthpiece for them. But I mean, I think that when we thought about where we differ from the holding groups and what we can offer around stability and around, all the people, the owners of the agency who are still, 9 times out of 10 are still on the tools, and have been for dozens and dozens of years, all of these tangible points, we looked at numbers around, stability and around the average agency's age is
28, is it?
No, it's not that much. It's around the teens. But when you think about that, the management structure has been in place for pretty much that time.
Yes.
Compared to the revolving door of some other larger businesses.
Yeah.
So when you deal with the business, you've got the skin in the game of the owners and you've got a direct line to them, and they're involved with the business. But also, they will be for the that's a huge piece. That's a huge benefit to actually have a relationship and also maintain that over the years. So, we looked at it from the point of view of where are our strong points and where are probably our weak spots and what things can we dial up the guys. And you know, BCM and Phil and the guys did an absolutely outstanding job kind of resonating that without not upsetting the top end of town or too many publishers too much.
But see, someone here just said staff surveys over the years would, you know, now the thing is everyone fudges those, so I don't believe the staff surveys, right? So I think that's bullshit. You know, if you said you've done a staff survey, I wouldn't fucking believe you, you know. So I've seen them over the years and they're bullshit. So I know someone's going, not everyone, but the thing is the market doesn't have credibility there. You may think yours is, but the market's fudged them so many times over the years, and I've seen it. You know, I've actually been asked to do it. So I don't think, you know, a staff survey is not going to do it. Now, if it's an independent survey that the AFR has done with your staff as part of innovation or something else, or best places to work, and they've done an independent survey that management can't fudge, different. But it's got to be independent. It can't be just a staff survey you've done.
There's a third-party survey on engagement that was sent out to all the members, I think about 3 weeks ago, which is going to kind of position how well our staff are engaged, hopefully, compared to the top end of town, which is going to be quite interesting. And I can imagine it would probably be a very positive number. But that, guys, I hope everyone's filled that out. I've got
as long as it's independent and someone is doing it who could be audited or has a reputation where I go, okay, that's not the dodgy survey company, that's Accenture, or that's, you know, Fin Review or Best Places to Work or whatever. Because as I said, everyone, like the top end of town, they all fudge this. I mean, they just do. You know, so you've got to have, you know, media eye, I think, you know, once again. But once again, you know, I was at an agency and the media I figure they were using was a year ago because it had dropped off in the last 12 months. So they weren't using the latest one. You know, people fudge this stuff and clients have lost trust in it. So got to be independent and give me a stat that, you know, once again, a consultant or someone else or just someone independent has done it, is my 2 cents. Because if you give me a staff survey you've done, I just won't believe you. Even though someone here on the chat is going, Sparrow, ours is legit. Yours might be, but the markets aren't. Any other questions? I think we're up to time, but anything else? Ask me. Are there any tips on RFPs? Yeah, so a great tip on RFPs. If you can't, so on any RFP at the bottom of the page, put what's in it for the client. And someone's nodding there. What's in it for the client? If you can't fill that box in, what's the page doing there? Rip it out, fucking throw it away. If you can't put the benefit to the client. So, Mr. Client, this page, the benefit to you is this. And you have a little box at the bottom of every page. And if you can't fill it in, that page should not be there. Same thing with any slide in your credentials deck. I did a big pitch, and the bottom, there was a little tag that had the benefit. And people, Sparrow, I need that slide. Well, you can't fill the benefit in. You don't need that slide because you can't tell me the benefit of that slide. So what's the benefit for you? And the big tip with an RFP is personalize it. So the benefit to you, Mr. Client, name them. And also in the introduction letter, personalize it. Dear Sam and Kathleen, this has been, bespoke for you. Please make out as though it's not cut and paste, even though they are. Try to definitely in the opening and closing and on every page a benefit to the client. And you can't fake that. You've got to think about it and put it in there. So, yeah, that's a big tip on RFPs. If you can do that on every page of the RFP, definitely be more engaging and memorable, because even if they just read the benefits on the bottom and then have an executive summary at the front, 1-page executive summary, no more, 1-page executive summary. If I only read the 1 page at the front and all the benefit boxes, but still get your story and get the benefits, I'm going to give you the business. I'm not going to read 100 pages or a doorstop. It's just not going to happen. That's why RFPs these days, any smart RFP, if it comes from, I think our friends, Beaver and whatever, they tell you it's got to be 8 pages, 6 pages, 1 page, double-sided, but whatever, because no one's going to read 100 pages or a big RFP. Just not going to happen. So short is better, but keep the benefits and a personalised executive summary up the front.
Any
I think
other
that's about
questions?
it. Any other questions?